Johnny Carson left behind a fortune so immense it still moves his family to tears. For 30 years, he was the last familiar face millions saw before sleep, the undisputed monarch of late night. With impeccable timing, plain-spoken Midwestern charm, and that signature golf swing, Johnny didn't just host The Tonight Show, he defined it. When he said goodbye on May 22, 1992, a true epoch closed. After 4,531 episodes and nearly 25,000 guests, television's most powerful figure walked away at the height of his sway, slipping into a famously private life that only burnished his legend. For the next 13 years, until his death in 2005, he was almost unseen, a sphinx in retirement whose silence only deepened his aura. So, what became of the vast wealth built across those decades on top? The man who once joked, "I was so naive as a kid I used to sneak behind the barn and do nothing," was anything but naive about money. When Johnny Carson died at 79, he left a financial legacy that shocked Hollywood and permanently altered the paths of those closest to him. This isn't merely a ledger of dollars, though the figures will stagger you. It's the portrait of a complicated man whose last choices revealed more about his character than any line he ever delivered on air. Today, we trace the unexpected journey of Johnny Carson's fortune, how he earned it, where it went, and why it stirred such powerful emotions in his family. Because sometimes what we leave behind says more than what we do while we're here. And for Carson, the ultimate legacy wasn't the empire he built on television, but what he chose to do with its rewards once the cameras finally went dark. The boy from Nebraska, humble beginnings. Long before the years Johnny became America's nightly greeting, John William Carson was a Midwestern kid with ambitions bigger than his circumstances. Born on October 23, 1925 inches, Corning, Iowa, and raised mostly in Norfolk, Nebraska. His childhood gave few hints of the astonishing career to come. Johnny grew up in the heart of the Depression, a family friend recalled. His father, Homer, held a steady power company job through lean times, but the Carsons weren't wealthy. His mother, Ruth, was the household's outsized personality, sharp and forceful. Johnny inherited her wit, but kept it under wraps. That complex bond later surfaced as self-mockery on air. "My mother never quite believed I was good enough," he'd say, a line with more truth than joke. What truly set Johnny apart was an early fixation on magic. After seeing Harry Blackstone, Sr., he ordered a magic kit at 12 and was hooked. Beyond sleight of hand, it taught him cadence, misdirection, and how to read a crowd. As the Great Carsoni, he worked Rotary halls and county fairs for $3 a show, his first entertainment pay. That teenage magician could never have dreamed his annual salary would one day hit 8 figures. After high school came the U.S. Navy, where he served as an ensign during World War II. He never saw combat, but time-decoding messages aboard the USS Pennsylvania broadened his horizons and later fueled dry, funny anecdotes. After his discharge, he enrolled at the University of Nebraska to study radio and speech, targeting the booming post-war broadcast world. On campus station KFAB, he started performing. He wasn't the obvious star, a classmate remembered. Smart, quietly ambitious, even shy off stage. Nothing like the effortless host America would later see. The metamorphosis was remarkable. Carson's early professional years took him to WOW Radio in Omaha, and then WOW TV, where he hosted the Squirrel's Nest Humble Steps for a future icon. Even then, he showed a cool head and a knack for mining humor from pressure. In 1951, he made the leap to Los Angeles. At KNXT, he built Carson's Cellar, catching the attention of heavyweights like Red Skelton. When Skelton reportedly knocked himself out, an hour before a live show, Johnny was thrown in as an emergency replacement and nailed it, proving he could improvise on a national stage. He also hosted Earn Your Vacation and The Johnny Carson Show, short-lived, but critical rungs on the latter. By 1957, he was hosting Who Do You Trust?, the job that honed his interviewing reflexes and paired him with Ed McMahon, the straight man who would introduce him for 3 decades on The Tonight Show. Johnny was methodical, a TV historian said. He studied what worked, built a bag of tools, and learned to seem effortless. All of that groundwork paid off in March 1962, when NBC made the decision that rewired TV history, picking Carson to replace Jack Paar on Tonight. At 36, he stepped into the role that would help make him one of the wealthiest entertainers alive, the making of a fortune more than a host. Johnny Carson didn't just front The Tonight Show. He owned parts of the machine. In an age when on-air talent took salaries and little else, he rewrote the model with shrewd bargaining and impeccable timing. Johnny knew his market value. A former NBC executive said, by the mid-1970 seconds, he wasn't only after raises, he wanted ownership, licensing, and control. The numbers tell it plainly. In 1962, his pay was $100,000 a year, roughly $900,000 today. By retirement 30 years later, he reportedly earned $25 million annually, then the highest in TV. But his masterstroke was leverage. In 1980, Tonight expanded from 90 minutes to 2 hours. Carson agreed with a twist. NBC returned the extra 30 minutes to local affiliates. Why concede airtime? Because Carson Productions would supply many of the shows filling those slots, adding a revenue stream outside the NBC paycheck. It was brilliant, a historian noted. He created prime schedule real estate, then developed it himself. Out of sight, his clout ran even deeper. By the late 1970 seconds, he'd secured ownership of his Tonight library, a goldmine as home video and cable reruns grew. He also demanded approval of guest hosts as his vacations increased, an unusual prerogative that reflected his singular value. His renewals became industry legend. The dance repeated. Johnny hinted at quitting. NBC panicked. He emerged with better terms. In 1980, he won a groundbreaking package, cutting down to 3 nights a week for 37 weeks a year, from 5 nights for 46 weeks, while boosting compensation. That's roughly 111 shows a year versus 230, doubling his per-show rate and freeing time for other ventures. Timing helped. His peak coincided with rising ad rates before cable fractured audiences. Night after night, he was the anchor for advertisers. The ripple effects were massive. One strong set could mint a comic. Publishers pre-printed for the Carson bump. Vegas boosted fees for comics he silently endorsed. Launched in 1980, Carson Productions extended his reach beyond Tonight, co-producing TV's bloopers and practical jokes with Dick Clark. Not a mega studio, but a smart hedge beyond his network salary. Quietly, he also accumulated Southern California real estate during a major upswing, including a Malibu compound reportedly bought for about $9.5 million. In the early 1980 seconds, with a tennis court, pavilion, and private beach access. Properties in Beverly Hills and other elite areas rounded out the holdings. He lived well, but compared to today's flash, he was almost modest, said a friend. Elegant homes, some art, smart bets, nothing gaudy. By retirement, Analysts pegged his net worth between 300 to 450 million in early 1992 dollars, roughly 600 to 900 million today. Conservative management and seasoned advisors meant the fortune didn't shrink after his farewell. It kept compounding, which left insiders wondering, what happens to that mountain when TV's most private superstar exits? The answer fit the man: surprising, precise, and deeply intentional. The man behind the desk, a complex private life. To understand Carson's last decisions, you have to grasp the paradox. For 30 years he came into America's homes, yet stayed an enigma. Warm and razor-sharp on camera, guarded off-stage. He was like two people, a Tonight veteran said. The genial, unflappable host was real, but only a slice. Off-stage, he could be withdrawn, difficult, even lonely. Fame isolated him in ways few around him could fully grasp. His personal life reflected the same contradictions. 4 marriages to Jody Wolcott, 1,949, 1,963. Joanne Copeland, 1,963, 1,972. Joanna Holland, 1,972, 1,985. And finally, Alexis Maas, married in 1987 until his death in 2005. The first 3 were strained by workaholism, emotional reserve, and, by some accounts, infidelity. His split from Joanne reportedly cost $6 million, a major number in the early 1,970 seconds, yet only a slice of his growing wealth. The 1,985 divorce from Joanna was the shocker. A reported $80 million in cash and property among California's largest at the time, around 30% of his estimated net worth. That was a wake-up call, a financial advisor said. From then on, asset protection and estate design moved to the front of the line. With his sons Christopher, Corey, and Richard, love was never in doubt. But closeness was hard, worn down by his schedule and reserve. He wasn't the most demonstrative father, a family acquaintance said. He adored them, but showing it wasn't easy. He maintained few intimate friendships and could turn cold if he felt crossed. His drinking, known inside the industry, sometimes complicated matters. Alcohol helped the naturally shy Johnny work a room, a producer explained, but there were stretches when it went too far. The deepest pain struck in 1991 when Richard died in a car accident at 39. Carson was shattered, though private in grief. That loss accelerated his rethinking, retirement, meaning, and the legacy he wanted to craft. The final act, a fortune dispersed. Johnny Carson passed on January 23, 2005, from complications of emphysema, and the TV world mourned. Behind the scenes, attorneys and accountants began implementing one of Hollywood's most meticulous estate plans. Johnny was extraordinarily deliberate, said an attorney who knew the documents. This was a blueprint refined over years. The headline shocked many. The principal beneficiary wasn't family or industry insiders, it was the Johnny Carson Foundation. A previously low-profile charity suddenly vaulted into the major leagues with an endowment reported at $156 million. For a star who avoided public crusades, it surprised casual observers. In reality, it aligned perfectly with his ethos. He believed in opening doors for strivers, just as he had to push his own open. The foundation concentrates on education, children's services, and health, especially in Nebraska, where he grew up, and Southern California, where he built his career. Its operating style, methodical, discreet, publicity-averse, precisely how Johnny preferred to give. A signature gift arrived in 2015, $20 million to the University of Nebraska, creating the Johnny Carson Center for Emerging Media Arts, investing in the kind of creative training that launched him. As for his sons Christopher, Corey, and Richard, posthumously, they received inheritances, though amounts were never disclosed. Speculation ranges from comfortable to generous, but not excessive. Johnny believed massive inheritances can harm kids. A family source said he wanted them secure, not rudderless. His widow, Alexis, reportedly received specific bequests, properties, and items of deep personal meaning, while the bulk went to the foundation, reflecting a shared understanding of his philanthropic intentions. He also remembered loyal staff, longtime friends, and colleagues with bowed personal gifts. One notable bequest, $800,000 to the Animal Foundation of Las Vegas, a nod to his affection for wildlife, a fondness audiences glimpsed during frequent Tonight Show animal segments. When the full picture emerged, there were tears not of anger, but of recognition. His loved ones finally saw, in unmistakable form, the values that guided him, the unexpected legacy, tears of realization. In the years since, the foundation has quietly transformed lives, scholarships, children's health initiatives, arts endowments, community programs. By 2022, grants had surpassed $200 million, with minimal fanfare. For the family, witnessing that impact has been an education of the heart. Those tears weren't about money forfeited, they were about pride and understanding. A scholarship for a Nebraska student with Johnny's grit. A young broadcaster's first real break. Moments like these redefine what inheritance can mean. At times, his sons have attended events and seen the ripples firsthand. When Chris meets a recipient with that same Midwestern resolve, a board member said, "It can feel like Johnny is still discovering talent from beyond the curtain." Former Tonight staffers have felt it too. Many say the philanthropy revealed depths they hadn't fully appreciated: moral clarity, distaste for performative charity, and a focus on measurable good. The professional persona versus the private man. Carson's legacy forces a reassessment. The relaxed, always amused Tonight Show presence was genuine and carefully crafted. Off-camera, he could vanish into quiet. America's greatest conversationalist sometimes struggled with actual conversation. A friend joked. He compartmentalized with near-surgical precision, dazzling at work, then abruptly unreachable in private. Even his giving followed suit: substantial, usually anonymous. He believed character is what you do when no one's watching. His May 1992 farewell offered rare cracks in the armor. During breaks, staff saw the weight of the moment in his eyes. On air, he stayed composed. "I bid you a very heartfelt good night." And those who knew him heard the depth beneath the restraint. In many respects, his estate plan is the truest self-portrait, values expressed in deeds rather than applause. Beyond money, the true Carson fortune. Carson's ascent from Nebraska modesty to extraordinary wealth is quintessentially American. But directing most of that fortune toward opportunity for others tells an even larger story. He knew money's highest purpose isn't comfort or spectacle, it's impact, a philanthropy advisor said. For his family, the initial surprise evolved into gratitude. Yes, they received inheritances, but the greater gift is watching lives remade by his choices. What stands out is the balance. Care for loved ones and a broad, purposeful vision, not either or. It's the difference between writing checks and building ladders. In a celebrity culture obsessed with the spotlight, his model prizes substance over show. He could have sought credit. He didn't. Applause is addictive, he liked to say, but empty if you haven't earned it. The Foundation's quiet, efficient work is exactly the sort of earned impact he respected. For younger people who know him mainly from clips, the philanthropy introduces the man behind the smile, the one who believed talent is universal, but opportunity isn't. Notably, the Foundation has stayed true to that ethos. Efficient, unsentimental, results first. We ask not just what Johnny would do, but why, a board member said, applying his underlying values to new needs. And so, nearly 20 years after his passing, the Carson effect keeps widening. By 2023, distributions exceeded $250 million. And his example is reshaping other celebrity estates, multiplying the good. In decades ahead, many successful people will know Johnny Carson, not as late night's king, but as the person whose scholarship changed their lives. That's a cultural shift he might not have predicted, but one that suits him perfectly. For a man so hard to know beyond a carefully crafted persona, this final chapter may be the clearest image. Not the figure behind the desk, but the human being behind that figure. In a career defined by perfect timing, perhaps his most powerful moment came after the monologue ended, when he chose a legacy measured not in ratings or even dollars, but in opportunities created and lives uplifted. And that is a fortune worth crying about.